A spring that brought love. New York City. Emma, a 27-year-old interior designer, worked at a small creative studio in Brooklyn. She was intelligent, modest, and a bit introverted. Having gone through a few heartbreaks in the past, she had grown skeptical of love. Her world revolved around her work, her small circle of friends, and the quiet solitude of her apartment. Everything changed one early spring morning when a new artist, Jason, joined the studio. He had studied in Paris and recently moved back to the US to work on a joint creative project. Jason was warm, charismatic, and had a disarming smile that caught Emma off guard. At first, everything was strictly professional. They brainstormed ideas, sketched mockups, and spent long hours perfecting every detail of their shared project. But slowly, Emma began to notice things. The way Jason's eyes lit up when he talked about art, the quiet confidence in his voice, and the subtle kindness in his actions. One evening, while the rest of the team had gone home, Emma and Jason stayed late at the studio. Rain was falling softly outside the large windows, painting streaks across the glass. Jason handed Emma a cup of coffee and said quietly, "Emma, your designs always carry this strange warmth. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's your heart shining through them." She looked down, her cheeks turning red, and smiled shyly. Her heart beat faster than usual. Something had shifted. From that day on, everything between them changed. They walked through Central Park in the evenings, visited art galleries together, and shared their favorite spots in the city. Jason opened up about his childhood, his mother's influence, and his dreams behind each canvas he painted. Emma talked about her fears, the scars she hid, and the hope she never admitted to having. One weekend, Jason drove them out to the Catskill Mountains. As they stood overlooking the misty hills, he turned to her and said, "Since I came here, I found something I didn't expect. I found myself, and I found you. Emma, if you're ready, I want to walk through life with you. No more solitude, just us." Tears welled up in her eyes. For years, she had closed her heart, too afraid to trust again. But now it was open. From that day forward, their love grew stronger. They faced challenges hand in hand, celebrated victories together, and created a life full of passion, creativity, and deep understanding. Emma and Jason weren't just lovers. They were partners in every sense. They say love comes when you least expect it. For Emma, it came with the arrival of spring and Jason. Beneath the rain and the canvas. It had been 2 months since Emma and Jason had opened their hearts to one another under the misty skies of the Catskills. Life in Brooklyn returned to its regular rhythm. The morning subway rides, coffee breaks in the studio, and the ever-busy creative deadlines. But something had changed between them. Now, every shared glance held deeper meaning. Every small gesture, the way Jason would pull her chair out, the way Emma would leave a sticky note with a sketch of a heart on his laptop, became a quiet language only they understood. But love, even when real, is not without challenges. One rainy evening, Jason stood at the window of Emma's apartment, watching the streetlights reflect in the puddles below. Emma was curled up on the couch, sketchpad in hand, lost in thought. He began, his voice hesitant, "I've been offered a gallery showing in Los Angeles. It's big. It could really launch my career as an artist." Emma's heart dropped. She looked up, searching his face. "How long?" "A year," he said, not turning around. "They want me there full time. I'll be working with a group of painters, traveling, curating exhibitions." Silence settled between them, thick and uncomfortable. Emma stood, slowly placing her sketchpad on the table. "Do you want to go?" He finally turned to face her, his eyes uncertain. "I want us, Emma, but I've worked for this for years. I never thought I'd be torn like this." Emma felt the sting of tears behind her eyes, but kept her voice steady. "Then go." Jason frowned. "What?" "I won't be the one to hold you back from your dream. If you don't take this opportunity, you'll resent me someday. And I don't want that." He crossed the room in 3 strides and cupped her face in his hands. "I'd never resent you." Emma shook her head gently. "But you'd wonder. And that's enough to build walls between us." That night, they didn't sleep. They talked for hours about love, distance, compromise, fear. And by dawn, a decision was made. Jason would go to Los Angeles. Emma would stay in Brooklyn. They would try to make it work, no matter how hard. Before he left, Jason gave her one of his unfinished canvases. I want you to finish this, he said. Fill in the rest. Let it grow with your story. With ours. Emma stared at it long after he'd left. A canvas of blue skies and half-bloomed trees, waiting to be filled. Days turned into weeks. They talked daily, through video calls, texts, voice notes. But no message could replace the warmth of his arms or the way his laughter filled the room. One evening, as Emma walked through a rainy Brooklyn street, she passed by a small gallery and froze. Displayed in the window was a large painting. A woman standing beneath a stormy sky, her hands stretched upward toward the light. It was titled, Emma Through the Rain. Her breath caught. That was her. That was their story. The next morning, she received a package. Inside was a letter from Jason. Every brushstroke I've made here still feels like it starts with you. This journey isn't about distance anymore. It's about growing stronger. And I think we're doing just that. You once said you wouldn't hold me back. But Emma, I've come to realize, nothing pulls me forward more than the thought of you. Emma placed the letter next to the unfinished canvas in her apartment. She picked up a brush and began to paint. Not with sadness, not with longing, but with hope. Lines across a map. The first weeks apart turned Emma's days into a quiet hum of routine. She rose early, brewed French roast, and sat before the half-finished canvas Jason had left her. The sweep of blue sky and half-bloomed trees still waiting for her touch. During video calls, she noticed small things. The smudge of cobalt on Jason's cheek after a long day in the studio, how the California light sliced across his apartment in bands of gold, the way his shoulders tightened whenever someone knocked on his door mid-conversation. The Los Angeles residency was prestigious, but the schedule was brutal. Gallery meetings at dawn, press interviews at night, endless networking with collectors whose questions sounded more like transactions than genuine curiosity. One Thursday evening, Emma found herself alone in a Soho cafe, sketching rough concepts for a boutique hotel lobby. A stranger, an elderly woman with silver braids, paused to watch. Those trees, she murmured, look like they're searching for someone. Emma's pencil stilled. She realized she had reproduced the outline from Jason's canvas over and over, as if distance could be erased by repetition. That night, she dipped her brush into fresh viridian and painted the first new leaves of spring onto the waiting branches, her silent message across 2 time zones. Part 4, Spotlight and Shadows. Jason's first group show opened in a downtown LA warehouse, converted into a gleaming white cube gallery. Critics praised his bold palette and ethereal figures, calling his work a diary of longing captured in color. Yet with success came whispers. A prominent arts blogger published a photo of Jason beside Renee Caldwell, the residency's glamorous curator, suggesting a muse behind his newest pieces. The headline reached Emma before Jason could explain. During their nightly call, she tried to sound casual. Looks like you're becoming a West Coast celebrity. He laughed uneasily, cheeks flushed. Tabloid nonsense, Em. Renee's just pushing publicity. But Emma's confidence wavered. She knew all relationships face tests, yet the glare of media was an exam she hadn't studied for. Instead of confronting the ache, she poured herself into work, accepting an ambitious contract, redesigning a historic brownstone in Harlem. Bricks and blueprints felt safer than jealousy. Part 5, Flight Patterns. Autumn crept into Brooklyn, swirling russet leaves across the East River promenades. One crisp morning, Emma's inbox pinged with an invitation. She'd been shortlisted to present her Harlem project at a design summit in Los Angeles. The irony made her laugh out loud. Jason was ecstatic. You'll be here in 3 weeks? I'll play my schedule. We'll tour the coast, eat fish tacos, watch the sunset at Santa Monica. But summit organizers booked Emma into back-to-back panels and networking dinners. When she finally landed at LAX, jet-lagged and nervous, Jason was installing a mural at a children's hospital, an all-night job he couldn't abandon. They texted promises to meet tomorrow, but tomorrow kept shifting like the tide. They were in the same city, yet missed each other by minutes. Their calendars a cruel choreography of near collisions. Part 6. The 20-minute sunrise. On Emma's final morning in L.A., she slipped away from the conference hotel before dawn and took a rideshare to Runyon Canyon. Jason met her at the trailhead, paint-spattered jeans and thermos in hand. They hiked in silence until the city unfurled below, a quilt of lights surrendering to sunrise. I hate that we're always racing clocks, Emma whispered. Jason set down the thermos. Then let's stop running. I've been offered a 2-year contract to stay here, but I haven't signed. Emma's breath caught. You love it here. I love painting, he corrected. Where I do it matters less than who I come home to. Tears blurred the skyline. Brooklyn isn't exactly cheap or spacious for an artist with giant canvases. I can make it work, he said. Just promise me we'll decide together. Part 7. Crossroads at Runyon Canyon. The air was still cool when Emma and Jason met at the base of Runyon Canyon, just before dawn. The Los Angeles skyline was a soft silhouette in the distance, its buildings barely awake. Jason carried a flask of coffee, 2 cups clinking in his backpack. They hadn't seen each other in days, their schedules like 2 trains on different tracks. As they hiked higher, words came in bits. Work was overwhelming, sleep short, and their brief visit had turned into a constant chase. When they reached the overlook, Emma sat on a rock and stared at the horizon. I hate this, she said softly. Being in the same city, but never really seeing each other. Jason sipped coffee and replied, I know. I've been thinking. I was offered a 2-year contract to stay here. Curating, painting, all of it. I haven't signed. Emma's heart clenched. She turned toward him. Do you want to? He looked down. I want us. But I also want to grow. I don't know if those two can happen at once. The silence between them wasn't heavy, just honest. Finally, Emma reached for his hand. Maybe it's time we stop trying to make the world fit around us and start building something in it instead. Jason nodded. Together? Together. Part 8. The call that changed the rhythm. 2 months later, Emma received a phone call that cracked open her carefully rebuilt life. Her father had suffered a mild stroke. She left Brooklyn the next morning and took the first train to Syracuse. Jason helped pack her bags, kissed her at the station, and promised to call every night. At her childhood home, Emma sat beside hospital beds, juggled medications, and coordinated rehab schedules. Her sketch pad stayed in her suitcase. Creativity had no space between beeping monitors and paperwork. Jason stayed in L.A., his own days filled with mural projects and mentorships. He sent her photos, fresh canvases, sun-drenched alleys, quick sketches of their studio back home. One box arrived with a small watercolor set and a note. When you have no time for big ideas, paint tiny ones. The heart still needs color. Emma began to paint. Her father's hand gripping hers, hospital sunlight pooling on the floor, her old backyard with snow bending the rose bush. Art became breath again. Part 9. The unspoken letter. Winter passed slowly in Syracuse. Her father improved, walking short distances, joking again, but Emma stayed, haunted by the thought that she might leave too soon. She and Jason texted constantly, but time zones and exhaustion chipped away at real connection. One night, unable to sleep, she started a letter. Jason, sometimes I wonder if love means staying even when your hands itch to create. And other times I think maybe love is what lets you go do that creating as long as it comes back to me. I miss your laugh. The blue smudge on your shirt. Us. I don't know what's next, but I still wanted to be with you. She never sent the letter, but she carried it in her journal, folded tightly, like a seed waiting for spring. Part 10. A canvas left unfinished. By May, her father insisted she go back. I don't need a nurse. By evening, they had created not just Part 7. She never sent the letter, but she carried it in her journal, folded tightly, like a seed waiting for spring. Part 10. A canvas left unfinished. By May, her father insisted she go back. I don't need a nurse. I need my daughter to keep building something out there, he said with a crooked grin. Emma returned to Brooklyn with new eyes. The apartment smelled of old coffee, and her drafting desk was exactly as she left it. Jason arrived the next morning, carrying bagels and tired eyes. There was no grand reunion, just quiet, a held hug that lasted longer than usual. He had been working on a massive triptych for a new exhibit. The first two panels pulsed with color, movement, and emotion. The third panel was still blank. I couldn't finish it without you, he told her. That afternoon, in their studio flooded with light, they painted together for the first time in months. Slowly, steadily, side by side, two figures began to form, reaching toward one another from opposite sides of the canvas. In the space between them, golden sky. By evening, they had created not just a painting, but a vow. They would finish what they started. In color, in silence, in strength. Part 11, a new start. The day after finishing their triptych, Emma and Jason opened the studio windows. Spring air rushed in, sweeping out the quiet. The studio felt alive again. Emma dusted off her models. Jason set up his canvases. Clara, now walking, stomped around playfully. Indigo, their faithful dog, followed close behind. Jason unrolled a blank canvas and smiled at Emma. We're starting again, he said. Part 12, Growing in Queens. Emma's housing project in Queens was finally approved. The site was an old car lot, now covered in weeds and broken fences. But Emma saw possibility. At the first community meeting, a woman said, "No one's ever asked us what we want." Emma replied, "This building belongs to you." Part 13, a unique proposal. One Sunday, Jason brought Emma to the rooftop. The skyline glowed. A blank canvas stood in the center instead of a ring. He handed her a brush. "Will you paint the rest of our life with me?" Emma laughed, eyes full of tears. She dipped the brush into yellow and made the first stroke. "Yes, always." Part 14, Indigo slows down. Indigo was getting older. He no longer ran, but followed Clara, lying close whenever she played. Jason painted him asleep beside toys. Emma made paw print tiles for the garden path. They didn't talk much about it, but every time Clara placed her blanket near him, they felt his love. Part 15, Art and a Birthday. For Emma's 35th birthday, Jason turned their studio into a gallery. One wall showed her old blueprints. Another had Clara's messy finger paintings. The centerpiece was their triptych. Emma whispered, "We really built something." Jason smiled, "And we're just getting started." Part 16, Stormy Days. That summer, heavy rain flooded the East River. Emma ran to her construction site. Jason stayed to protect their home. They moved sandbags and called neighbors. Emma found Clara's tiny rain boots floating in a puddle. Jason wrapped her in his coat. "We'll rebuild again," he said. "We always do." Part 17, Concrete Blooms. After the storm, Jason painted murals of flowers breaking through the sidewalk. Emma suggested rooftop gardens. The city said no. So Jason and local kids painted protest signs. "Let US grow." It made the news. The city agreed. By fall, kale and flowers grew on the rooftops. Clara ran barefoot through the garden, laughing. Part 18, Too Much at Once. Life got busy. Clara, work, projects, meetings. One night, over leftovers, Emma asked, "Are we drifting?" Jason set down his fork. "No, we're stretched, but we always come back." They smiled and clinked their forks in a quiet toast. Part 19, Windows from Afar. Jason was invited to show his work in Tokyo. He hesitated. "Go," said Emma, "but let's stay connected." He painted one window each day he was away. Emma sent Clara's drawings to fill the space. On the final day, Emma flew in. The last painting showed their studio window with Clara's handprint in the center. Part 20, Back to the Beginning. Returning to Brooklyn, everything was just as they'd left it. Indigo barked once and curled up. Clara ran to her cardboard city. Jason opened his paints. Emma looked over her new proposals. Clara hummed as she played. Jason turned to Emma and said, "Let's never stop building." Part 21, Little Hands. Clara started building towers from blocks, books, and pillows. Every day, she created something new. Emma watched and smiled. "She's an architect already," Jason said. Clara brought them her creation, a small house made of cardboard. This is home, she said proudly. Emma and Jason looked at each other. Yes, Emma whispered. It really is. Part 22, a new roof. Construction in Queens moved fast. One of the rooftops was ready for planting. Emma gathered the team, Jason brought paint, and Clara held seeds in both hands. They planted together basil, tomatoes, flowers. Jason painted birds on the garden wall. Clara chased a butterfly, laughing. Later, Emma wrote, "A garden above the city, grown by many hands." Part 23, saying goodbye. Indigo, their loyal dog, grew tired. He ate less, slept more. One evening, he lay by Clara's bed, his eyes soft and tired. Clara hugged him gently. The next morning, he was gone. They buried him near the studio garden, under a tree. Clara placed her favorite drawing next to the stone. "Thank you for guarding us," Jason said. Part 24, quiet days. The house felt still without Indigo. Jason painted with soft colors. Emma worked in silence. Clara asked, "When does love stop?" Emma hugged her. "Never. It just becomes part of us." Jason nodded, "And we carry it forward." They lit a candle that night and told stories about Indigo until Clara fell asleep smiling. Part 25, a shared dream. Jason and Emma were invited to speak at a youth center. They talked about building, homes, murals, and dreams. One girl raised her hand. "Can art make people care?" Jason said, "Yes. It made me care more than I ever thought possible." Emma added, "It connects us, even when we're far apart." The room clapped. The girl smiled. Part 26, late nights. Projects filled their days. Clara started preschool. Jason stayed up late painting. Emma reviewed blueprints past midnight. One night, Jason brought tea and sat beside her. "I miss our walks." Emma took his hand. "Let's take one tomorrow. Just us." And they did. No phones, no meetings. Just steps and wind and each other. Part 27, trouble on site. At the Queen's site, a pipe burst. Workers were frustrated. Schedules fell behind. Emma stayed late, wearing boots and a hard hat. Jason brought her lunch, stood beside her, helped clean the mud. "You're not alone in this," he said. She smiled. "Good, because I don't want to build without you." Part 28, rain in the studio. One afternoon, rain poured over Brooklyn. Studio windows fogged. Clara painted with watercolors while Jason sketched, and Emma planned a new project. Thunder rumbled. Clara jumped. Jason hugged her and whispered, "Even storms make beauty. Listen to the rhythm." They listened together, safe, warm, and close. Part 29, an unexpected letter. A letter arrived from a village in the Philippines. It read, "Your rooftop garden idea inspired our town. We built our own. We called it Sky Hope. Thank you." Emma cried reading it. Jason added the letter to the studio wall, beside photos of Clara and Indigo. The world was listening. Part 30, Clara's first gallery. Clara's preschool hosted an art show. She had painted a huge sun with two houses and a tree in between. Emma asked, "What's this?" Clara replied, "It's our love house, with a sun to keep it bright." Jason framed the painting and hung it in the studio. "That's our greatest project yet," he said. Part 31, a big decision. Emma was invited to lead a building project overseas in the Philippines. Jason was asked to paint murals for the same program. It would mean moving for a year. They sat on the couch, holding hands, thinking. "We'd go together," Jason said. Emma nodded. "If it helps others grow, let's do it." Part 32, packing light. They packed boxes and bags. Clara helped choose which books to bring. Jason wrapped brushes in cloth. Emma made lists, then rewrote them. The studio would stay behind, but the heart of it, the family, would travel. Before leaving, they took one last picture by the studio window. Part 33, a new home. They arrived in a small town near the sea. Houses were simple, roofs made of tin. People waved as they passed. Emma began helping design new, safer homes. Jason painted school walls with waves and stars. Clara played with children in the sand. "This place feels kind," she said. Jason smiled. "It is." Part 34, building with stories. Emma listened to local families. One woman said, "I want a house where my child can dream." Emma drew plans with wide windows and quiet corners. Jason taught kids how to paint their memories on walls. Bright colors filled the village. "Stories live in homes too," he told them. Part 35, A Storm Returns. One night, strong winds blew through. Rain slammed the roofs. Trees bent low. Emma checked shelters. Jason gathered supplies. Clara held her flashlight tight. They spent the night with villagers, keeping everyone calm. When the sky cleared, Jason painted a rainbow across the school wall. "We made it through together," Emma said. Part 36, Letters from Home. Back in Brooklyn, friends sent letters and photos. The studio was still full of light. Emma's team in Queens had finished a rooftop garden on their own. Clara drew pictures for her old teacher. Jason wrote, "Love doesn't stay in one place. It travels like the wind." Part 37, Seeds and Smiles. Clara helped plant trees around the new homes. She gave each one a name: Hope, Joy, Kind, and Strong. Emma added benches under the trees. Jason made a mural where all their names danced in the sky. The village felt like it was singing. Part 38, Home Again. After a year, it was time to return. They said goodbye with hugs and tears. Clara gave her favorite book to a new friend. Emma stood on the plain steps, looking back. "We didn't just build houses," she said. "We built love." Part 39, Back to Brooklyn. The studio was dusty but waiting. Jason opened a window. Emma smiled at the light. Clara ran to her old art corner. Jason added new pages to his sketchbook. Emma drew plans for a new community center. Life was different, but still theirs. Part 40, The Horizon. One night, they sat on a rooftop again. Clara slept inside. The sky was full of stars. Emma asked, "What should we build next?" Jason answered, "Something that lasts. Like laughter, like kindness." They held hands and watched the city breathe. The future wasn't clear, but it was full of hope. Part 41, A Tiny Surprise. One morning, Emma felt dizzy. Jason made tea, worried. After a checkup, the doctor smiled. "You're expecting," she said. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Jason held her close. Clara clapped when she heard, "I want to be a big sister." Their world shifted gently, full of wonder again. Part 42, Building Space. They rearranged the apartment. Jason painted clouds on the nursery wall. Emma built a tiny bookshelf from leftover wood. Clara helped fold baby clothes and placed her teddy next to the crib. "It's for the baby," she said, "so they don't feel alone." Part 43, Slowing Down. Emma's belly grew. She moved slower, rested more. Jason cooked, cleaned, and sang lullabies before the baby even came. Clara kissed Emma's stomach every night. "We're already a team," Jason whispered. Love filled the apartment like soft music. Part 44, The Name. They sat around the dinner table, listing names. "What about River?" Clara said. Jason looked at Emma. "It's gentle, strong, and always moving forward." Emma smiled. "Perfect." That night they wrote it down. River Rivera, coming soon. Part 45, A Night to Remember. At 2 a.m., Emma whispered, "It's time." Jason called a cab. Clara stayed with a neighbor. Hours later, in a quiet hospital room, River was born. Jason held her tiny hand. Emma cried softly. "She's here," he whispered. "She's ours." Part 46, Welcome Home. They brought River home, wrapped in a yellow blanket. Clara gently held her sister, eyes wide. "She's so small," she said. "She'll grow," Emma replied. "Just like you did." Jason took a photo. Emma, Clara, River, and smiled. This is the art we never had a plan. Part 47, Soft Days. Time slowed. Diapers, midnight cries, lullabies. Emma stayed home, watching River sleep. Jason painted only in the evenings. Clara played quietly nearby, drawing pictures of their family with extra stars around the baby. Peace lived in their home, even when it was noisy. Part 48, Clara's Show. Clara's school held an art day. Her drawing showed their whole family. River in Emma's arms, Jason with paint on his face, Indigo floating like a cloud. "Who's that?" the teacher asked. "Our angel dog," Clara said proudly. The class clapped. Jason wiped a tear. Part 49. A growing studio. Jason reopened his public studio, now with a children's art corner. Clara helped lead classes. Emma brought River in a sling and helped design a new mural. They called it Family in Color. Parents came. Kids painted freely. Everyone felt welcome. Part 50. Looking back. One quiet night, Jason looked through old drawings, Tacloban, Queens, Tokyo. Each one held a memory. Emma joined him, River asleep on her shoulder. "We built a lot," he said. Emma nodded. "And still building." They smiled, surrounded by their art, their dreams, and their daughters. Part 51. Letters to River. Emma began writing letters to River, just like she once did for Clara. "Dear River," she wrote, "you came into our lives like morning light. You don't know it yet, but you've already made us better." She sealed it and tucked it beside the crib. Part 52. Steps and Scribbles. River began to crawl. Clara cheered her on. Jason painted footprints from both girls side by side. Emma added the date beneath them. First steps. Same floor. Different journeys. They framed it and hung it by the door. Part 53. The Community Center. Emma pitched a new project, a center where kids could learn art, build, and feel safe. Jason offered to paint the whole outside with stories from the neighborhood. Construction began. Clara planted flowers around the walkway. River clapped at butterflies. Part 54. The Ribbon Cutting. Opening day arrived. Families gathered. Jason handed Clara the scissors. "Are you ready, artist?" he asked. She nodded proudly. "Yes." She cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered. River laughed in Emma's arms. The center was open, and it felt like home. Part 55. The Visitors. Old friends from Queens and the Philippines came to visit. They brought gifts, drawings, letters, seeds. One man said, "Your idea planted roots everywhere." Emma hugged him. Jason smiled. They walked through the studio, memories on every wall. Part 56. A book begins. Jason started writing a children's book, The Girl Who Built Rainbows. Clara helped with ideas. Emma edited each page. It told the story of Clara, River, Indigo, and a family that built more than houses. They built hearts. Part 57. Clara's Question. One night Clara asked, "What happens when we're all grown up?" Jason replied, "Then you'll build, and we'll watch with joy." Emma added, "And when you fall, we'll catch you." Clara smiled. "I'll build something amazing." They believed her. Part 58. River's first word. It came while they painted together. Jason dipped her little fingers in blue. River looked up and said, "Home." Emma gasped. Clara clapped. Jason froze. "Did she really?" River giggled. "Home." They cried, hugged, and laughed. Part 59. Full circle. Emma returned to the rooftop where Jason first proposed. This time, she brought a brush. She wrote across the canvas. Still painting, still dreaming. Jason kissed her. Clara and River twirled behind them. The sky blushed pink, as if smiling too. Part 60. The horizon is ours. They gather on the rooftop, Jason, Emma, Clara, River. The wind was calm. The city lights sparkled. Emma asked, "What now?" Jason said, "We build again. Not for us, but for others." They held hands, hearts full, because the horizon wasn't ahead of them anymore. It was already within them.